Welcome back to the Crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still repeating this massive top signal in the price chart, while Ethereum is getting extremely close to officially confirming a break below this very important area of support, while Solana just now confirmed a break below this area of support, and time is running out for the arbitrage opportunity in the crypto funding rates. So yes, I've actually just increased the position sizes of my trades right here to a total of $4 million, which I'll talk about in just a moment, showing exactly how I'm planning to make a lot of very easy profits right now. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we're potentially hours away from confirming a new bearish divergence, effectively extending the previous bearish divergence with, of course, another higher high in the price, which has already confirmed in the candle closes in the price action. But right now, we're potentially about to confirm a new lower high in place in the weekly Bitcoin RSI, because in just a matter of hours from now, and less than 1 day from now, this next weekly candle will officially confirm, will close. And so once again, just be prepared for this bearish divergence to now reconfirm, effectively extending the bearish divergence again another time, like what we saw, of course, with that latest lower high after the previous lower high. So ultimately, yes, we're still technically within the bull market. We haven't confirmed any bear market or anything like that, but we are losing momentum. Obviously, right now at this stage in the market, we have nowhere near the bullish momentum as what we saw earlier in the bull market. And so just keep this in mind. All of this is still happening here on the larger time frame, something to pay attention to on the larger time frames, the bigger picture. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price chart, this kind of aligns with what's happening on the weekly time frame, potentially about to reconfirm the bearish divergence, which could cause a larger slowdown over the next 1 or 2 months. And that would basically play out and look very nicely here on the daily time frame, because right now we still have the same fractal playing out right now to what we saw earlier this year. And so obviously I've talked about this a lot here on the channel over the last few days, since actually before we saw that massive drop off. I've talked about this massive top signal repeating, getting ready for another major bearish move. And once again, right now, the current stage in the price of Bitcoin, we're potentially where we were roughly around February this year. So quite possibly we could see a continued drop in the coming weeks or months. But for now, obviously, we're still holding this support. This is really the final crucial area of support for Bitcoin before potentially something worse. And this area of support I'm talking about is in between around 107,000 to 108,000. So for now, that is a crucial area of support for the price to hold above. But if we start confirming, for example, daily candle closes below 107,000, and especially if we fail to get back above that area, kind of like what we saw back here, the earlier of this year right here, during around February, for example, breaking below these lows just here, that was a strong signal telling us we're going to go much lower in the coming weeks. So definitely pay attention to that area on the price chart at around 107k to 108k. And looking at the short term, obviously on the 4-hour time frame, we hit extremely oversold, and like I explained in my last video, it's extremely likely that just in the short term, for the next couple of days, expect a bit of choppy sideways price action, effectively the price of Bitcoin and really the overall crypto market somewhat stabilizing a little bit after that major volatile move. And so obviously over the last 1 day, we have seen a bit of choppy sideways price action, as I predicted in my last video, and I'm saying the same thing right now. I do predict a little bit more choppy sideways price action over the next 1 day. Quite often this is very normal price action. And also something to consider is oftentimes if we have a massive candle wick towards the downside like this, oftentimes we do end up at least somewhat filling that candle wick, as we do have potentially a lot of liquidity towards the downside. And so to be clear, what I'm predicting right now for the price of Bitcoin in the short term is a little bit of choppy sideways price action to continue, maybe for the next 24 hours, but then perhaps in a couple of days from now or a few days from now, expect perhaps a slight little pullback to start to fill some of that candle wick towards the downside. But once again, we still have a lot of support to focus on at 107k to 108k. So maybe we retest close to that support and continue finding support around there, at least for now. But overall, once again, just in the next 1 day, expect relatively boring price action, mostly chopping around sideways as a very likely scenario just for the next 1 day, talking about the short term. And just before getting into my exact trading strategy, sharing with you exactly how I'm planning to make a lot of quick and easy profits in the market right now, first taking taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the 3-day time frame, and right now the Bitcoin dominance is still simply looking bullish, as I've been saying every day for weeks now, for almost a month now, since basically around mid-September. Every day since then I've been saying expect at least some sort of bullish relief, some sort of slight bullish relief for the Bitcoin dominance is a very, very likely scenario, which basically means a lot of the altcoins will be doing worse than whatever Bitcoin is doing. So for example, if Bitcoin is bouncing around sideways, a lot of altcoins might have a slight little pullback, or if Bitcoin has a major move like this towards the downside, expect an even worse move for the altcoin market. Once again, I've been saying basically that exact same thing for weeks now on the channel for the Bitcoin dominance. And so I continue to expect this to be the case, considering right now we're still gaining strength in the RSI, still playing out the bullish divergence. But do keep in mind, we're starting to run into this point of resistance based on previous support and previous resistance in the Bitcoin dominance. That's sitting in between around 60.5% to 61%. So it's possible the Bitcoin dominance could start to struggle a little bit around that area, but overall I'm still more bullish than bearish on the Bitcoin dominance. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, we're potentially hours away from officially confirming a 3-day candle close below this very important area of support for Ethereum, sitting in between around 3.9k to 4.1k. And especially if that starts flipping into new resistance, if the price fails to get back above that area, in this situation, honestly, and already right now, we're starting to form larger bearish price structure, as we now have clear lower lows in the price chart and of course lower highs in the price chart for the first time in a long time on the larger time frames here. And so obviously previously we were in this larger bullish trend with the occasional short-term pullback or short-term bearish trend during the larger bullish trend, but right now once again we're seeing a lot of signals pointing towards larger bearish price structure. In other words, a trend reversal from the larger bullish trend into quite possibly what could be a longer term bearish trend that could potentially last over at least multiple weeks, if not multiple months, as a very likely scenario. So keep this in mind. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 8-hour time frame, right now in the immediate short term, of course, the price is stabilizing a little bit, which is exactly what I said in my last video. Obviously, after a major move like this towards the downside, the most common outcome is just a little bit of choppy sideways price action for the next couple of days. It's a very, very likely scenario, especially if we hit oversold. Usually that's a signal telling us that we're due to see a bit of a break from all of the bearish price action, but not necessarily a massive bullish recovery. We can see maybe a slight little bounce in the short term, but really the most common outcome is a bit of choppy sideways price action like this as a very likely scenario. So this is honestly what I predict moving forward just in the short term. And as for resistance to watch out for, expect some short-term resistance based on this previous low flipping into new resistance at approximately 38.70, so just under 3.9k. We do have some resistance around here, and if we see a further breakout, expect more resistance at around 40.60 to 4.1k. But once again, overall in the immediate short term, I do expect relatively neutral price action, not massively bullish or massively bearish. Basically the price just stabilizing a little bit after that massive volatile move. And of course, another reason as to why we're likely going to see either a sideways consolidation or quite possibly just a very, very slight little bounce in the next 1 or 2 days is of course a new bullish divergence, which is now confirming with lower lows in the price and higher lows in the RSI for Ethereum. So obviously this is now effectively ending this previous bearish divergence, meaning it's already played out very nicely here in the form of this massive pullback. And now we should be expecting most likely once again a sideways consolidation or possibly a very, very slight bullish relief, but not necessarily a massive bullish recovery. And if we're taking a look at Solana on the 2-day time frame, over the last 1 day, we've officially now confirmed a 2-day candle close below this very important area on the price chart, which was acting as, first of all, strong resistance and then strong support for the price for a long time. And that was sitting in between around 190 to 200. And so I now expect strong resistance in this area. So if we see a little bit more of a bounce here, once again, expect a lot of struggle, possibly rejections from roughly 190 to 200 if we were to actually hit that area. And as for support, obviously focus on roughly $170, which I've been saying since before. We pretty much perfectly bounce from that level, at least on this chart right here. Once again, as I said in my last video, on different exchanges, prices have crypto assets went to totally different prices on different exchanges, but at least on this chart, we did pretty much perfectly hit 170 and bounce from that level. So continue to expect support at roughly 170, but if we break below that level, do expect a small amount of support at around 156, 157, but below that, the next important area of support is in between around 143 to 146. And clearly the larger price structure has now officially changed. Previously, we were forming higher lows and higher highs, breaking out above points of resistance, flipping it into new support. Now we're doing the opposite. We've just officially confirmed a lower high in the price chart, also now confirming a lower low in the price chart and breaking below a very important area of support, and of course rejecting from a point of resistance, which is all bearish price structure. So rather than just potentially being in a short-term pullback within a larger bullish trend, we are quite possibly now forming a larger bearish trend that could contain the occasional short-term bounce along the way towards the downside. So keep that in mind. And if we're taking a look at the short term here on the 4-hour Solana price chart, obviously right now the price of Solana is simply kind of just bouncing around relatively sideways in the immediate short term, which is exactly what I talked about in my last video. And it's what I continue to predict right now. Just a bit of choppy sideways price action as a very likely scenario. Not necessarily a massive bullish recovery, but basically just a bit of a break from all of that extreme bearish price action is very, very likely, at least in the immediate short term. Because even despite the fact that we're starting to play out a bit of choppy sideways price action, the RSI is still in oversold, which shows how oversold we got with that drop right here, which once again ultimately means we still need to reset the RSI further towards the upside, and usually that happens by seeing some sideways price action in the price of Solana and other crypto assets like this. And so that's ultimately what I predict in the short term, and of course talking about the larger change in the price structure on the larger timeframes. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin and crypto funding rates, we can see that right now almost all of the funding rates for almost every major crypto asset across almost every major exchange is sitting well in the negative territory, which could possibly cause some sort of short squeeze. So keep this in mind, especially if these funding rates remain negative. This could potentially cause a bit of a bounce towards the upside to maybe liquidate some over leveraged short positions that were late to short crypto. But the main thing that I want to draw your attention to on this funding rate chart right here is of course the Solana funding rates, because we can notice a major arbitrage opportunity, and I talked more about this in my last video as well, giving you this opportunity even though it basically screws my own trade, because the more people that know about this, the less money I can make from the trade. But I'm basically sharing this opportunity completely for free here on YouTube, because we could clearly see a massive arbitrage opportunity between the funding rates, specifically basically between almost any funding rate across any major exchange here, and specifically the BTNX funding rate, because we can see that right now almost all of the funding rates across these major exchanges here, Binance, OKX, Bybit, etc., almost all negative funding rates for Solana and a lot of other crypto assets. But if we're looking at the Solana funding rate on BTNX, it's very much positive. And even if it was just neutral or even just slightly negative, because of how negative the funding rates are on these other exchanges, that's still an arbitrage opportunity. And because this opportunity is still here and still lasting and could possibly last for another day or two, I don't expect this to last for very long, but because this is still currently happening right now, I've actually massively increased the sizes of my positions to basically take advantage of this arbitrage opportunity. And so if you watched my last video here on the channel, I had basically two $500,000 positions adding up to a total size of $1 million. Right now, I've basically quadrupled that size. So now I'm at a total size of $4 million taking advantage of this opportunity. So right here on my BTNX account, a $2 million short position for Solana. On my Bybit account, a $2 million long position for Solana, both trades 5x leverage. And in case you missed my last video, basically the idea of this trade is to not have any directional bet on the price of Solana. So once again, the long and the short, they're the same size. They cancel each other out if the price goes up or down. So the unrealized P&L here, you could see that they pretty much cancel each other out. As the price goes up or down, one loses, one gains, etc. And so what I'm doing here is simply taking advantage of the arbitrage opportunity between the funding rates. So I'll actually do a really quick calculation for you right now to show how this opportunity essentially works. And so we can see that right now the funding rate on BTNX is basically 0.0714%, and that's basically every 8 hours. So if we divide that by 100 to get it into decimals, and then times it by the total position size on my BTNX side of the trade, which is 2 million, basically every 8 hours, I'm making 1,428 USDT at the current funding rate. And then over on Bybit, we can do the same sort of calculation here. Obviously, I'm in a long position and the funding rate is negative, so I'm also earning the funding rate fee. So right now, the funding rate on Bybit is 0.0743. Divide that by 100 to get into decimals, times by total position size, 2 million on this side of the trade, roughly 1500. So plus the 1428 on the BTNX side of the trade, I'm making basically that much per 8 hours. So per day, about 8,700 USDT in effectively passive income. And another way to look at these numbers is to simply just look at the annualized interest rate that you're effectively getting on your money by getting the average of these two funding rates. So for example, if we're getting this rate right here, 0.0742%, and then plus the funding rate over on BTNX, which is 0.0714, get that divided by 2, essentially you're getting that per 8 hours. So divide times by 3, that's per day, times by 365, this is annualized rate. Basically right now, based on the current rates right now, obviously these rates can change very often, but based on the current funding rates, you're effectively getting around almost 80% per year interest rate. And so if you have your money sitting in a bank account, a savings account, you might be getting 2%, 3%, 4%. If you have your money sitting in this trading opportunity, this arbitrage opportunity, currently it's getting around almost 80% APY. And so this is the opportunity. Once again, it is delta neutral, which means it doesn't matter if the price goes up or down. The long and the short cancel each other out. So we're not looking at the unrealized P&L number here. They effectively cancel each other out. We're looking at the realized P&L, and you can see that's where the funding fees actually go into. And I got a few comments in my last video saying that the fees just to open and close the trade will be higher than the funding fees, and that's completely incorrect. Obviously, on my BTNX trade right here, I paid about 300 USD to actually open the trade in total. That's the trading fee, and already almost 4,000 USD in funding fees that I've been paid. And you can also see that over the last one day, I've placed a take profit and stop loss for both of the trades here to effectively cover in the case that we see a massive move and the trades start to get liquidated. So for example, the liquidation price on the trade over on Bybit is at roughly $147 per Solana. So I have a stop loss just above that. And of course, to remain delta neutral, both trades need to open and close at the exact same time. So if I have a stop loss at 150 on this side of the trade, I also have to have a take profit at 150 on the other side. And then vice versa, my liquidation price for the trade over on my BTNX side of the trade is at roughly 216, 217, give or take. So I have a stop loss just before that at around 212, which means I also have to have a take profit on the Bybit side of the trade at also 212. And so because I've now set up those take profits and stop losses, I can effectively just walk away from my computer, log off, and still make thousands of dollars every 8 hours from this opportunity. And once again, I'm sharing this opportunity with you completely for free here on YouTube. A lot of people charge for this information. And in fact, the more people that know about this, the smaller the arbitrage will get, the more people that take this opportunity. So yes, I'm actually screwing myself over by letting you know about this opportunity completely for free here on YouTube. And when it comes time to closing the trades, once again, I'll need to close both of the trades at the exact same time to remain delta neutral, basically reduce the size of the trades on both ends at the same time. And I'll be doing that once these funding rates become closer together. So even if, for example, the funding rate on BTNX flips negative, if it's only, let's just say, negative 0.01%, while the Bybit funding rate is negative 0.07%, in that case, this trade is still profitable. There's still an arbitrage, even if on the BTNX side, I'll be paying funding fees. The Bybit funding fees that I'll be earning on this side of the trade will be basically much larger than any amount that I'll be paying over on BTNX. And so basically, I would only exit out of this trading opportunity once the actual funding rates here get relatively close. So for example, if they're within, let's just say around 0.02 from each other, then I'll potentially look at just getting out of the trade, because by that point, the arbitrage is pretty much closed. And of course, if you want to take this opportunity, you have to be obviously shorting and longing on two different exchanges. The long can be on an exchange that has one of these negative funding rates. Like for example, right now, I'm doing it on Bybit because the funding rate is very negative over on Bybit right now. And of course, the short position side of the trade ideally has to be on an exchange that has ideally a positive funding rate, or at least a higher funding rate than the negative funding rate here. And right now, really the only exchange that has a very, very high funding rate, making this a perfect opportunity, is of course BTNX. And so once again, if you're wanting to take this opportunity, really BTNX BitNex is one important piece of the puzzle here to actually take this trading opportunity to make a lot of easy money in crypto right now. So I'll make sure to leave a link to BitNex below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to 120,000 USDT in trading bonuses here, and also deposit bonuses. If you deposit as little as $100, you get a $20 bonus, or if you deposit 1,000 USDT, you get a $200 bonus from the exchange into your account, just simply by making an account, making a deposit using that link. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check it out. Once again, first link below the video to BitNex. And in case you're wondering, BitNex is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for future reference, if you want another exchange that I also trade on that's not BitNex, I also trade on 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on once again. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page where you can also claim massive bonuses. For example, up to 10,000 USDT in trial fund bonuses and 8,000 USDT in actual withdrawable stablecoins just by trading and depositing using that link. And on top of that, you can also, without making any deposit or any trade, get a free $30 sign up bonus and 1 month free VIP 3 upgrade. So basically very cheap trading fees over on 2bit. But once again, all of this right here is only available if you're using the link below the video to actually make your 2bit account. And in case you're wondering, yes, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at XRP here on the weekly time frame, right now we're still playing out that massive bearish divergence on the weekly time frame that I warned about months ago now on the channel back in around July to August. I've been talking about this massive bearish divergence pretty much every day since then. And so obviously this is all still affecting the price of XRP like I said months ago. And if we're taking a look at the daily XRP price chart, obviously right now we've already broken below a very crucial area of support here, which was basically the signal that we're going to go much lower. So obviously in terms of the price structure, still not looking too good. We're still looking very bearish in terms of the larger price structure, forming lower highs, lower lows, and of course breaking below a very important area of support, which would now likely act as new resistance. So if the price were to actually get back up here, I'm not saying it will, but if the price gets back up here, expect a lot of resistance in between roughly $2.70 to $2.80. And of course, we also have more resistance in between $3.10 to $3.15, which is also pretty much perfectly where we rejected from at this high just here. And overall, in the immediate short term, I expect either a slight little bounce or mostly just some choppy sideways price action. Basically a slight relief, a bit of a break from all of the bearish price action is very likely for XRP just in the next 1 or 2 days is a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, I'll basically say the same thing here. Obviously, larger price structure, still looking bearish like I've been saying for a long time, still forming lower highs and lower lows. But in the immediate short term, I do expect potentially a bit of a bounce or a bit of a relief, just a break from all of the bearish price action. Not necessarily a massive bullish recovery all the way towards the upside, but just a bit of a relief from the bearish price action is very likely in the next 1 or 2 days. And so in other words, we're kind of seeing a short-term bounce within a longer-term bearish trend is effectively what we are seeing right now. So keep that in mind. And in terms of support and resistance, still expect a lot of support at give or take 1740, 1750, and below that, more support in between around 1520 to 1560. And as for resistance, expect a lot of resistance in between around $19 to $20. And once again, if you want to take any of these trades in the price of any crypto, like what I'm doing right now to make a lot of very quick and easy profits in the crypto market, make sure to check out the links below the video to those exchanges if you want to claim the massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can take trades like this to make a lot of quick and easy profits in crypto, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.